Just a few more seconds. All right, you may begin whenever you like.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the January 19th, 2021 meeting of the CB6 Executive Committee. My name is Kyle Thide, and I'm the chair of CB6. This meeting is being called to order at 6:34 p.m. And tonight we are joined by District Manager Jesus Perez. Tonight's minutes will be taken by the CB6 office, but we will now take attendance by roll call.
All right, when I call your name, please say present. Kyle Thide.
Present.
Thank you. Excuse me. Elvie Barroso.
Present.
Thank you. Matt Bondi. Matt Bondi. Claire Brennan.
Present.
Thank you. John Keller.
Present.
Thank you. Sandra McKee. Sandra McKee. Rich Mintz.
Present.
Thank you. Kevin O'Keefe.
Present.
Thank you. Matt Roberts.
Present.
Thank you. Gene Santoro cannot join us tonight. Sandro Sherrod.
Present.
Thank you. Mark Thompson.
Present.
Thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Thank you. Claude L. Winfield.
Present.
Thank you. Reshma Patel.
Present.
Thank you. And we do have quorum.
All right, thank you, Jesus. The agenda for tonight's meeting appears on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. To members of the executive committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom. All right, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Before we begin, let's discuss some ground rules. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom first. As a reminder, the chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information such as an email address or link that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will first identify you as the chair, and then you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. And last but not least, we are required by New York State law to have a transcript of the meeting, so please keep all questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. We will now begin with tonight's agenda. I'll now deliver my chair's report. So I don't have a very long report. There are just two things I want to mention. And the first one is, of course, the terrible news that we heard about our dear friend, Rick's passing at the beginning of this month. Obviously, we have gone through all of the moments and the impact that he has had on each and every one of us. And so I want to commemorate him again tonight and obviously thank him for the service on the board and all that he had done for each of us. In terms of commemorating Rick, we've had a couple of initial discussions about how to do this. Some of this will be shared with us through his will, but some of the things that we've discussed that he had mentioned as he was preparing his affairs was a bench in his honor. Obviously, Rick had a passion for the neighborhood and in particular areas. And so we thought that this would be a great thing for the board to be supportive of. A member of his family did reach out to me, so I don't have much more information about what he had sort of organized on his end and how we can be supportive of that as well. but I will share information about that as it comes along. And I'm sure many of you are aware through your own personal friendships with him as well. So as we get more information, we'll figure out how exactly to do that, but that's the idea that has been shared and offered by many people, and something that I think would be a great idea as well. But in the interim, one of the things that many people have actually reached out to me about is very similar to last week, creating a type of space for people to come together virtually and to commemorate Rick and to share stories about how he made us laugh and smile, and even how he got on our nerves sometimes. And so I'm going to get a group of people together, the people who have expressed that, and put something together virtually, hopefully by the end of the month, that people have the option of attending and just kind of coming in very casually and expressing what Rick meant to them, and sharing stories again. So that's in the works as well. And so I'll have more information on that as I hear about it. But I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything about Rick, or maybe has some ideas or anything like that before we move on.
Kyle, I was thinking if we could, by the end of the month, do something outdoors. If we bundle up and meet in one of the parks, that might be nice way to do it, as opposed to Zoom, for people to kind of, one, he always appreciated the parks. He also was the one who was like, when are we going back into in-person meetings? And I think that it might be nice, especially if we're going to put a bench in his name, if we could do it in a park somewhere.
Yeah, so that's obviously something we've been talking about, but even his family, when I talked about if there were any sort of familial services that they were doing, and they said that they wanted to stay away from in-person gathering until they felt safely out of COVID. And very similarly too, I would like to do an in-person event. I think commemorating Rick and honoring him is a great way for everybody to get back in person together. I'm not sure if we're going to be there by the end of the month. I would hate for people to feel like they couldn't show up, or they had to choose between putting their health at risk or showing up. So we're kind of thinking of two things. So obviously at a point when people can gather at the bench and maybe do something a little bit more formal, invite our electeds as well to do something a little more formal. But since it's still so raw and still pretty stunning, the news, to just give people an outlet, whether it's virtual or not, to kind of express themselves and just share things. And that's kind of how we're thinking about it. I'm not sure that will be, or that in general people will be comfortable meeting by the end of the month, whether it's outdoors or not. So I just want to be wary of that as well.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we said a lot at last week's meeting, and I'm sure we'll continue to share about that. But I just wanted to give the executive committee an update, and just if there was any sort of ideas, because I know many people on this call were very, very close to him. So again, if anything pops up, feel free to reach out to me after, but just wanted everyone to know that we are thinking about that, and working with the family and obviously people who are very close with him to make sure that we're honoring the best way we can. So the second item, moving on to the second item, is another thing that I mentioned last week, which was with the new, what we're calling meeting summaries. I know several meetings were canceled for this month, so this kind of wouldn't have made a good sense to sort of introduce that at this time. But I haven't heard any further feedback from anyone on the executive committee on the last draft that we had worked through together. So what I'll do is in the next couple of days, send out an email to the full board, just explaining what this new process is and sharing the template with them as well. And what I would like is for us to try this out for our February meetings and seeing how it goes. And then discussing at our March executive committee meeting if that made a difference, if it was just as hard, and just kind of sharing the pros and cons of it. So as you think about your meetings for next month, please keep in mind that we will be using the meeting summary template. Are there any questions about that? All right. Seeing none. Oh, go ahead.
So for we had a meeting that happened yesterday. We have a meeting that's happening tomorrow. Until you send out your template, then the minutes are supposed to be done the way they were in the old way, right?
Now let's just keep it neat. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so hearing no further comment or questions, I'll conclude my report, and we'll now hear from Jesus Perez, CB6 District Manager.
Hello, everyone. I'll keep my report, excuse me, super short. I've officially sort of been out sick for the past week, but not really. But I'm officially still out sick, so I don't have much of a report for you tonight. But rather something a little fun, I guess. You may have all noticed that I have, for the longest time, been using the sort of backdrop, the Zoom backdrop of our skyline. Reshma was so kind as to take that and add our logo onto it so that we could have an official CB6 Zoom background. Before it was just, just something that only I was using. And now you see Kyle has it. So I think it would be nice if all the committee chairs started using it too, if they want, so that they have something uniform to use. So at the end of this meeting, we'll be sending this to you. We'll be sending you the file by email so that you can use it for your meetings if you want.
Are you saying that the skulls background I use isn't cool?
It is not in keeping with CB6's brand identity, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, obviously use it if you want to, but I thought it would be nice for you guys to have it since you are all committee chairs and exec members, so that we can have a more uniform look. But unless there are questions about that, I don't have anything else, excuse me, to say.
Was Resmo on a ferry when she took that?
No, the picture we purchased. I purchased
Oh,
the picture for CB6 for use on our website. You'll notice that this picture is on our website as the hero image on the home page. And then since we had it, I was just using it as a backdrop for Zoom calls. And then Reshma was clever enough to ask whether we had an official CB6 background. I told her, not really, we just have this image. But she was able to slap our logo onto it and just make it an official image. So now we have it as an official CB6 backdrop. So yeah, you can use it for CB6 stuff, but obviously not for private stuff. But that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much, Jesus. Are there any questions or comments for Jesus? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the committee business. I will now hear from each of our committees and their meetings in February. And first up, we have Environment and Parks. So Kevin, take it away.
Thanks, Kyle. I do not have a recap of our January meeting, as we did not have a January meeting. On the upcoming agenda, number one, presentation by St. Varton Park Pickleball. This is the third month where one formalized community group will let us know what's on its mind and what issues the committee and the group may be able to work on together to improve district environment, parks, cultural affairs, and/or landmarks. The St. Varton Pickleball Group has an active Slack user group. In agreeable weather, they often have more players waiting to play than there is space. I'm sure that looking for a solution to that will be part of their presentation. Next up is a discussion of, this is ongoing, the Gramercy Park deed and tax assessment. Since the last executive meeting, we have been in touch with Councilmember Rivera's office. A new development has come up that has raised even more questions beyond our discovery and review of the original deed. The new development is about some deed-related decisions made by the trustees. Unfortunately, into the new year, as we continue to reach out to the president of the Gramercy Park Block Association about having a conversation, she nor any of her colleagues copied on our correspondence have responded. We will continue to engage with the council member's office, but we may be headed toward a need to secure a land use attorney. Next up is a discussion of permits for athletic fields for local teams and youth for-profit travel teams. This is a concern among those that do engage, especially leaders in the youth sports community, as the East River Park goes more offline. Space, as we know, is at a premium. as the Parks Department is able to prioritize youth activities and permitting, it isn't able to make a distinction between local nonprofit community league use and for-profit so-called travel team programs. So there is potential for our community leagues to be crowded out by youth travel squads and leagues where participation is limited and screened. Regulation or guidance may need to be updated by Parks Department that can prioritize community youth activity. Part of this, I've tapped into Eric Goldberg, who of course is a community board member and also happens to be the commissioner of softball for PSLL, the Little League program. This will continue to be an urgent matter to a number of people in the district. And in addition to the Parks Department report, we do have some old and new business. Jean is not here, but I will say we will be revisiting the need for stormwater flooding mitigation that Jean had introduced. Kyle, I'll jump to requests for partnerships. Again, we may engage further with the district office on the need for a land use attorney. Also, I'll point out for the group, Kyle knows this, and Councilmember Rivera knows this. New York Magazine has assigned a reporter to follow the Environment and Park Committee's research work on Gramercy Park. On committee vision, we can continue to progress on more open space in the district. The obstacles include securing elected power to help us reopen the UN park space to the public. More than 20 years later, the UN has cited 9/11 as a reason for the ongoing closure. The bridges and tunnel space on First Avenue between 36th and 37th is getting stronger on our radar. And that's about it. Although Kyle, at some point, I'd love to talk about the solo site on First Avenue between 38th and 41st and see if there's anything else that we can do to secure a meeting or a further discussion on that land. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Kevin. I see a question from Sandy.
I can always ask this offline, Kevin, but I know that the Alliance for Kips Bay was hoping there might be support again this year for the open street on East 36th Street.
Yeah, it's not on the formal agenda, but as you may know, that will be addressed either under old and new business or as a formal, but yes, that will definitely be part of our discussion.
And I think the DOT was hoping for a resolution.
Yes.
Or something formalized.
Yeah, we could put it as an agenda item. No worries.
And, however.
You know what? We thought it was going to come out of pickleball, just so you know. The pickleball group has been telling me that they need more space, and wouldn't it be wonderful if some of that street, 36th Street, can be used for pickleball courts, as Alliance for Kips Bay did have pickleball courts. So that was going to, any resolution would probably come out of that discussion. I'm happy to use that, put that as a formalized item as well. Or to use it for all the new business.
The tape is still there if they want to play.
We can make it a separate agenda item, and that is a discussion about continuation of the 36th Street open street.
And the solo site is definitely something that land use has had on their radar for quite a while. So I don't know if we want to try and make that a joint effort somehow.
Yeah, it just comes up. As you know, today was my 35th consecutive weekday morning working in the St. Varton Garden. The people that are helping us out there, that comes up a lot, is what can Parks Department do to potentially work with them, especially since it's not in use now, to maybe make some trails and do some gardening there. But that would be great.
Yeah.
Work in unison.
Thank you.
Sure. Didn't forget about it.
And Kevin, I'll be sending you an email soon, but I have some names for you regarding attorneys.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's some stuff that's bubbled up since. I don't have to go into it. And as you may know, Councilmember Rivera, as has Keith Powers, have been on the Oversight Investigation Committee. And it appears that Gail Brewer may be the next chair of that committee, just as an FYI.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Kevin. So we'll now move on to budget and governmental affairs. Reshma?
Okay,
This meeting that we just had this past January, we discussed the one fair wage bill, which is in the state Senate and the state Assembly. It's S808 in the state Senate. And Brad Hoylman is a co-sponsor of it. And so his office, Representative Sam Vasquez came to speak, as well as Sarah Jayaraman from One Fair Wage. And we had a pretty deep discussion and with many different opinions on this. And we're going to continue that in our February meeting, as well as discuss any updates that we will get from OMB on our budget request. And the plan is for us to write a resolution on the S808 bill and present it at the next full board meeting.
Jesus, do you have something? Or?
Anyone have any questions? Or?
No, I'm sorry, no questions from me. Sorry.
All right. Thank you very much, Reshma. I don't see any further questions or comments. All right. So we'll now move on to transportation. Are we waiving the report tonight?
Unless Phil is here to give the report.
Okay. So we'll just figure it out with Gene by email.
Al, can I ask a question?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I know Matt had a question, and I think it would concern transportation, but I can bring it up in the old or new business. I thought you agreed that you would discuss it at exec. He raised a question about transportation, the buses and the schools.
Oh, well, since neither of them are here, I saw them on an email exchange and they seem to have figured it out by email.
Okay, because it's a major concern at 23rd Street going down, because you have 104, PS 40, SALT, Friends, Night and Day. They all ride that same bus at 3 o'clock. And 23rd and 22nd Street is like covered with kids. And school personnel really cannot come out to supervise that. They're not covered legally when they're out on the street like that. So it is a concern.
So is the concern more of, because the email that Matt had sent in the email exchange was more about increasing the amount of buses that were going on. Is this more of a school sort of like crossing guard safety issue?
No. That's the issue. That is the issue. There are so many kids trying to get on the bus at one time, and all of those stops are consecutive right behind each other, that it doesn't allow for normal passengers to get on the bus. And sometimes, well, not now, but before, the restaurant right behind the bus kiosk used to get pushed in and people would get pushed aside. There's so many kids out there. It's just that school security cannot come out into the streets or come over to the buses to help supervise. There's no one to supervise that.
Okay. Yeah, so I know Gene and Matt had been discussing offline, so I'll double check with them to see what the determination was.
Okay, I just know he had mentioned it. Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that. So we'll now move on to Health and Human Services.
Good evening, everyone. So last Thursday, we had a speaker that spoke about the difference between the traditional Medicare and the new Medicare, which is called the Medicare Advantage. And she explained to us the problems with the Medicare Advantage. Although Medicare Advantage have a cheaper premium, but it has a limited network of doctors and other providers. It needs pre-authorization required for most diagnostic tests, pre-authorization required for most procedures, extended stays in skilled nursing and rehab facilities are oftentimes denied, and denial of most of tests and procedures. So members of the Health and Human Services have decided to draft a RESO to support the continuation of the traditional Medicare as opposed to the new Medicare Advantage for retirees. So we are in the process of drafting a RESO that will be discussed in the next meeting.
All right, thank you very much, Elvie.
Thank you.
Jesus, are you good on your end?
Yes, I think I am.
Okay. All right, and seeing no further questions or comments, we'll now move on to the next committee, Housing and Homelessness. Rich?
Hello. So we had, I'm still a little worn out from last night. We had a 2-hour and 40-minute meeting where the bulk of the time was spent talking about the new stabilization bed facility at 161 Lexington. I think Kyle did a good job of managing the 29th Street Association in advance so that the most of the, we had a speaker, Mara Messina, from there who spoke briefly after the presentation, and we were able to reframe most of the public questions so that they were respectful while still delivering the thrust of the question to the presenters. Obviously, the Zoom chat was more problematic, but that is not part of the public record of the meeting. So, you know, I mean, I think where we ended up on that was okay. We also considered and passed a resolution asking a DHS for earlier notice about the placement of social services facilities in our district so that we will have enough time for proper public notice and discussion, even though we don't have a review or approval role in regard to those. And we talked about 2 other issues. We talked about the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, which is in the Senate, which may come back, will probably come up, get out of committee and come up for a vote. We may decide to make a resolution in support of that. We left it to do further research to find out whether we had covered this in the past. And it turns out we have, but we covered the city version, not the state version of this. So Abby and I are going to talk about whether to prepare a resolution in advance for next month. But in any case, it is going to come back up for discussion. And then we had a conversation about the lifting of the eviction moratorium. And we talked about the Good Cause Act that is in the state legislature that would limit landlords' abilities to remove tenants, cap rent increases, and allow for a lease renewals by default. We did not agree in yesterday's meeting to prepare a resolution immediately on that because we had members who wanted further information about the specifics of the law than we had on hand. So that will come up again next month, and we may have a resolution for March. Excuse me for sticking my face in the screen. I have to read this. Yeah, okay. So we will have a presentation from Breaking Ground about the safe haven at East 15th Street. This is the same, for those who were here last night, this is the same thing that Jim Collins brought up toward the end of our meeting last night. And eviction moratorium is on the agenda. Probably there won't be anything else. The TOPA can come up in new business, in old business, so I don't think we need it on the agenda.
All right, thank you very much, Rich. I see a hand up from Kevin. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just make this quick. Rich, I listened in last night. Good meeting, good moderation, perhaps especially since more people were likely educated about the unhoused challenges. I just wanted to say something for the record. I've been meeting with a lot of parks personnel working over in St. Varton Park. I was told on multiple occasions that despite the wages earned by parks personnel, Some cannot afford housing and live in their cars or other unhoused space. Again, I just want you to be aware of that and thought I'd share it.
Yeah, is there a way for us to get more specifics on that you have?
Yes, I can get you to the right person, and the district manager for our district is aware of this.
Okay. Is this no, this is not the guy who's been in our meetings. That's the rec center guy. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Sandy, go ahead.
I also wanted to mention that, certainly people from the men's shelter, the 30th Street Men's Shelter, have volunteered for various parks events. And I think it would be great if we could, we're always looking for things, they're looking for things to do during the day if they're not currently, working. And even working at St. Varton's, it would be great. You could pull in some people who would be interested in doing that, I believe.
Would love that.
Yeah. And one other thing, there was a lot of discussion last night about at the meeting last night about how many facilities we have in our district. And that's really a land use issue. And I'd love to see the data that they have, and also to make sure that that it's correct, and that where we have the opportunity, that they're constantly looking for new places to house people. I think it's something that we could take over at land use, but I'm not sure how we get the data that the 29th Street group says that they have.
They will happily give us anything that we ask for. They would love to flood us with background information, and we could start with the presentation that member of the public, the slides that member of the public gave at full board as a starting point, because those are, that's probably not even a complete list and probably isn't inaccurate. It's better than anything we've gotten from DHS.
Great. And we could follow up and take a look at how it's spread through the district, and potentially where there are other places that would be acceptable.
That would be great.
Yeah, and I think part of this too, which is part of the resolution last night, was that we haven't received a fair share analysis for this particular location, which usually provides that specific data and maps and all of that. When there was the issue of the Renwick shelter in 2020, they provided a fair share analysis that was not necessarily accurate, and never properly amended it. We haven't received one for this particular site either, which was also an issue of consternation, which is why the resolution was passed, that's part of the process, is to provide a fair share analysis, which we haven't gotten. So we're continuing to push on that as well. And I'll share that with you, Sandy, if and when we get it.
Yeah, whatever we can get, so we can, be aware before it becomes a huge issue again.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Great. Any further questions for Rich in housing and homelessness? Great. Seeing none, we'll now move on to the next committee, public safety. Matt, go ahead.
All right. So really the key thing for this February meeting, obviously we haven't had a meeting since Thanksgiving. We do have our first meeting of the year tomorrow. But
I couldn't hear you. Oh, you on the phone.
Focus on the conversation on the continuation of what the district attorney was talking about last week at full board. We had already invited the office before that, and I was not aware that he was going to be on the call last week, but it's more committee business than full board. So we'll kind of go through his memo in partnership with his team or himself if he chooses to join, and try to get clarity on what that means for our district and any updates to that policy between now and the 17th of February. Outside of that, I think that'll be it for February. We are talking about we're looking at the state budget as far as any public safety, human rights related topics, and also down the road a bit, maybe something on cybersecurity. So that's pretty much all I have.
I just want to check in, Matt, because I know that at the meeting last night and obviously at the full board meeting last week, we heard a lot about, people's concerns about feeling safe and some of the crimes that have occurred. Has there been any updates from the local precincts about any updates or support that they might need in continuing to provide safety?
Yeah, I mean, the 13th precinct had their community council meeting last night. I listened in on some of that. It's really the same quality of life issues, stemming from homelessness, mental health issues, transit issues. There are some changes coming within the police department as far as when, officers being, on the streets as opposed to in the cars, and some structural things, some administrative people being out more so behind the desk. So there's some things there. It's really just managing everybody's expectations, and for people to actually, when they do see something disturbing, to call 911 if it warrants that. I think that's the biggest messaging and biggest takeaway issues that we're seeing is some people say, oh, I see, this person, has a mental health problem. They're acting erratic and potentially dangerous. And then you ask them, did you call 911? They're like, no, I would never think to do that. Or that's 911 should only be used for real emergencies. But in this case, that is the proper procedure. So that's pretty much all I can say about that. I have my 17th precinct meeting come out on the 25th. Look back at the year 2021 and what's ahead. So.
Okay. I also see a hand from Reshma. Reshma, go ahead.
Yeah, this could be a transportation question, but another thing that's in the news now because of the young woman that was pushed on the subway tracks on Saturday is a lot of people have been talking about and messaging me about, well, why don't we put those barriers up in New York City? And now I'm sure this over the years has probably been discussed before, but it is a public safety issue. And I did some research on it, and it turns out that it is something that has been proposed and has not been done. Partially, there's logistics issues, but partially the cost issue. And perhaps it's something that should be brought up again, especially given that we do have money coming in from the infrastructure bill.
Yeah, I mean, from a public safety standpoint, I think two problems with that is one, it takes a really long time to build those things. And yes, they are fairly expensive. So it could be 10 years before they're built, or several years at least, and you still have the crime issue to tend to between now and then. So I don't think that solves the problem. And I don't think you could put them everywhere. You could probably put them in a couple of key locations. But I think the real issue is really just attacking the crime and properly addressing the people who are causing the issues. But yeah, I mean, I have heard that. I know it's gaining steam in some circles, but we could certainly bring it up as a public safety issue or a transportation issue, depending on which way.
All right, Reshma, is that you have a follow-up?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, okay. That's it. Thank you. Yeah.
No problem. All right. Any further questions for Matt in public safety? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to youth and education. John, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. First of all, I was out of commission for the first 2 weeks of the new year with COVID, so I'm a little behind the 8 ball here. But for the February meeting, what I would like to do is move the discussion of presentation on a discussion of issues related to school bus service to the February meeting from the January meeting. So that that's what I would like to do, and carry on with the January agenda as it is, hopefully. And we will also, we're looking, Neil and I are looking at one other issue that we might put on the agenda next week, but I will deal with that offline once I'm sure we'll be able to do that. And for just a matter of information, apparently the new panel for educational policy membership will be announced on Monday, January 26th. So that's sort of a big deal in the sense of we'll see who the mayor's appointees are to PEP. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you, John. Are there any questions for John in youth and education?
Yes, excuse me, I have some. So John, just to be clear, your agenda item is discussion of issues of school bus service?
Well, a presentation by a member of the DOE, which is what's holding it up, but we're trying to get a member of the DOE to come in and talk about it. So we're having a little difficulty with that.
Okay, on issues of school bus service.
School bus service, right? You know, the timeliness, some of them aren't showing up. Heat is not present in some of them, especially for kids who are special needs kids. So it's a big issue.
Okay, and you're coordinating that.
Yeah, I'm taking care of that, but it's just taking a little longer, frankly, because I haven't been following it as aggressively as I could have.
Okay, so we'll put that on the on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions for John? Okay, seeing none, we'll now move on to business affairs and licensing. Claire, go ahead.
Hello. So the last meeting we had was December, excuse me, and Anton led it. And we started to he led a conversation about the open restaurants program, which is something that has come up a lot in recent days, especially with renewals that might not be kind of like complying with the program. So a broader discussion started, and this coming January meeting, excuse me, which is next week, we're going to continue and kind of like prioritize questions and concerns and like things that might not be clear based on kind of a list of sources that Alexandra prepared and sent to our committee, which is really great. And then hopefully for February, we can have someone from the Department of Transportation to come and talk it out with us. This is something that I would like to recuse myself as someone who works with the Department of Transportation, but an advantage is that I'm hopefully going to be able to get someone who works directly on the open restaurants program to talk with us. So in terms of like thinking about requests for partnerships, I'll reach out to Jean as we kind of get a little bit more clarity on the possibility of this. And then hopefully he could invite the Transportation Committee as well, because it does overlap, and Anton would lead that discussion. But other than that, I think that's all.
And I told that the first sentence. So
I see Andy's hand up.
And so you know you upsetting me. So
And just that the open restaurants came to land use first. So I think it'd be great if we could get land use, transportation, and business affairs and licensing.
That's great. Sorry to.
We could do this big joint meeting.
The more the merrier. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great.
It's controversial.
Yeah, I know. Sadly, I'm like asking a work friend to come get, yelled at, but hopefully we'll keep it civil. So someone came to speak at land use. Sorry that I missed that. Sandy,
the original, because they're changing the program, it used to be that you had to, go through land use. Now it's, or through city planning. Now it's being shifted to DOT.
Yep. So that would be great to collaborate with us three.
My understanding is they're still developing it, and they may not have much more information than what we got.
Yeah, so maybe it would even get pushed, but shooting for February. Kyle, a question for you, and I guess the office, thinking about, I was just kind of like caught up on the meeting with the water club about the casino. Is that something that I should like be adding to an upcoming agenda, or? wait on that?
Well, I don't think so right now.
Okay.
We'll keep you on the loop on stuff. Everybody just seemed to be on the same page. It was Councilmember Powers gathered a bunch of people, and he was not supportive of it.
Mhm.
It seems it's going to be more on a legislative side, but if anything does come down the pipeline where it seems more, doesn't seem pretty fruitful, but if for some reason it does seem to have some legs to it, then we can put that as an agenda item. But as of now, it doesn't seem to be anything that we can't deal with on the back end.
Perfect.
Kevin, go ahead.
Do we know when the water club lease runs out? I heard that it was upcoming soon.
Their lease or their license?
Their lease for the space, not because I believe the city is looking at that.
Yeah, so this is in conjunction with that. So we're not 100% sure, but we'll get some more clarity on that.
Okay, thanks.
I believe the permit that they use to operate the site comes due in another 6 years or so. I had to look it up, but I believe it's 2028.
Thank
It's a
you.
10-year permit. I think the last time it came before us was 2018. So let's say half a decade thereabout. It's not imminent.
Just looking back at Alexandra's copious notes, she said 2030, so it might even be later than that.
I'm sorry, are we talking about the heliport or the water club?
I was asking about the water club.
2030, and that's correct. I'm sorry, I'm confusing two things. Yes, 2030.
Yep.
Additionally, Claire, Alex did have some questions. The water club has submitted a renewal, an SLA license renewal. Do you want them to come in, or are they being waived?
I think we can waive them.
Okay. Additionally,
Sandy, sorry.
And sorry, but they're such bad neighbors. Couldn't we have them come in and at least explain how the club is working now, because it's closed, and it just is. It would be great to understand what's going on with them. And I don't want to burden, but
Yes, that's fine. I wasn't really aware that they were necessarily a bad neighbor.
If you guys like, they were a client of ours. I could ask their attorney. I think I know the answer, but I can try.
Okay, so we will be inviting them in.
And who's they? General manager or attorney? Just curious.
Probably their attorney probably is who, if anybody would come. The answer may be no, because they're involved in the casino.
Not Buzzy.
No. I think so.
No
We
relation.
can ask. Yeah, not Muzzy, not Buzzy. But we can ask.
and even understand what they're doing currently. It's closed the majority of the time, and it seems very sporadic with when it's open or not.
Yep, I think
they did use it for an American Express commercial shoot.
Yeah, okay, so let's bring them in then. Sorry, Jesus. Thank you, Sandy.
We'll bring them in. Liquor license renewal.
They won't come. But you can ask.
Try to bring them in.
Yeah.
Additionally, there is an establishment, a Neary's Pub, which is a corporate chain that that you wanted to bring in. We were just confirming you do want to bring them in, or
no, sorry, I must have misread it. If it's a corporate change, I don't think we have to bring them in.
Okay. I just wanted to double check. Additionally, We received a 30-day notice for an on-premises license for an entity to be formed at 563rd Avenue. Can you maybe get back to her tonight to let her know if you want them to be formalized?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And just to be clear, I know you're thinking about securing potentially a speaker, one of your colleagues, for February's meeting. Is this open streets discussion going to be, is Anton going to be saying anything about it at January's meeting?
Yes, I think so. I have to confirm with him, but my hope was that he would kind of like gather any thoughts or ideas in leading up to the next month.
Okay.
I can just confirm with him
right.
on that. I don't think he's responded yet.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Just try and get back to us tonight if possible about the 563rd Avenue establishment, and then we can let all these establishments know.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to the last committee, land use. Sandy, go ahead.
We we did not have a December meeting. And actually we have some revisions to our meeting, which is next Monday. The Public Advocate's Office is not actually ready to speak to us regarding the new law for, and forgive me, I forget how we had it on the agenda. And we'll probably also have make it a standard item to review our planning fellow for the 197A. And I guess we could do that in report, or we could make it an agenda item. And other than that, we don't have any specific issues coming up. So we'll transfer what we had in January for public advocate to February.
Okay, I will make a note of that. The item on a discussion of racial impact studies as part of the land use process will be stricken from January's agenda and tentatively moved to February.
Yes, they said they were hopeful that in a month they could have something.
Okay, I'll make that note. And the community planning fellow item will be a standing item for the next few months.
I think so. While he's working with us, I think we should do that. One thing we're trying to get we've asked as part of our ESCR update to have someone from the Parks Department come to talk to us about alternate open spaces now that the East River Park is being closed. And I guess, this is maybe combined with Kevin, just that the Greenway is going to be rerouted. The park is being closed, half of it's closed, and it'll be going through a sequence of different closures. So we're trying to get some kind of feedback and information on what's the proposal while that's going on. We're also trying to get DOT to come. They have not come to transportation in the last few months, especially because of the Greenway being closed. So that will probably be come up as the update that they've been pretty good about giving us updates on the construction, but not so good about giving us updates on park use and the Greenway.
And those sort of enhanced updates from like parks and DOT, you want them for February, or you want them for
February? Because we hope to get them in January, but I'm not confident we'll get it.
Yeah, I think we've already made some outreach.
For parks, yeah. I've been going to the CAG, I guess it's called. And there's a lot of concern that there hasn't been very much information coming out of the project. So unless they've really done some work in between the last meeting and our meeting, I don't think we'll get much feedback.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if I should update. We had our, and sorry, bit of a brain fog here, but we had our meeting on the east side, the rezoning area and the work that's being done on the Park Avenue malls. That was the main discussion at the meeting. I'm the representative from CB6 at that meeting, and they are moving ahead with it. It, of course, is outside our district, but because it's part of the Midtown rezoning, we do get to have some input on it. And right now they're looking at hiring a landscape architecture firm. And that's part of the monies that were raised due to the rezoning is going to go towards hiring the firm. So the DOT is doing that, and they're in the process of doing it currently. They don't have that team on board yet. And I guess too, if there's anything we want to take to to bring up at the CAG meeting for the ESCR, if people could let me know. They happen the first Thursday of every month. And that's it.
Sandy, are there any further questions for Sandy and Hughes? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda. So we're now at old or new business. So if any committee member has any old or new business, please raise your hand at this time. All right, seeing no further business, I'll adjourn the meeting at 7:31 p.m. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.